All right, welcome to Heroes on the Horizon here at IUS. Today I am joined with Charlie. My name's Levi. I'm already out of order.
And my name is Charlie. This is the first time, bear with them, that was kind of rough, broadcasting live from the beautiful Indiana University Southeast Campus.
You were just prepared to tell everyone that was rough, even before I said anything.
Everything you do is rough, Levi.
That's right.
That was not rough. That was smooth right there.
No, it wasn't. That was the most rough.
Ooh, hope y'all are okay at home.
Yeah.
How are y'all doing?
But before we go too far, I want to remind everyone to go ahead and follow our Twitter and Instagram. Our Twitter is _heroes, and our Instagram is heroes_on_the_horizon.
So rough. Also, very direct and to the point, and I like that. Give Levi a applaud at home, guys.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
That was his first time. He was really nervous. He was like, Charlie, how do I do this for you on the air? I'm like, I don't know. So go for it.
So today we have a very special episode for you.
Yeah.
In the wake of Valentine's Day.
It's our special.
We've got...
Oh my gosh. I'm not comfortable with this.
Comic book couples.
I'm uncomfy.
I had to do it.
I'm going to turn off your mic now.
No, I had to do it. Did you actually turn it off?
Yes, I did.
Did you really? Okay, I'm back on. Oh, I've been wanting to do that for hours.
You were planning on playing Careless Whisper the whole time.
No. Well, yeah, actually. Yeah, I thought not the whole time, just for that short little segment.
I'm really proud of you.
I'm a genius.
I know.
But no, yeah, we're gonna be talking about comic book couples.
And how it's kind of awkward.
How it's just horrible, like us.
Horrible.
How we're horrible and awkward, just like
don't.
comic book couples.
How you have some good ones, you have some bad ones. I can see bad. I don't know.
They're mostly bad. Let's be...
They don't tend to last long. I'll say that. They don't tend to last long.
It's gonna be an interesting episode. Maybe an uncomfortable episode.
Oh, definitely. I regret making this episode on the list, but we're too far gone now. Can't change it like, oh no, surprise, we're actually doing the Justice League.
Much like Valentine's Day, which is also interesting and uncomfortable.
You play more Careless Whisper. I see that phone in your hand. Put it down. There we go.
Much like Valentine's Day, this episode is also going to be a sad disaster. I'm ready, though. I'm prepared.
I love disasters. You weren't here for Alpha Flight episode.
Oh, you should have had Careless Whisper on your side for that episode.
Is Wham Canadian?
I don't know.
If you're at home, let us know if Wham is Canadian.
It's George Michael.
Is George Michael Canadian? No, it's for the person in Wham, but no one knows who it is, actually.
George Michael. He's English.
That's close, but not quite right.
He's English.
But yeah.
And he's a... well, he was English. I forgot he died a few years ago.
But who's the other person in Wham? Michael...
Whammed. Mr. Whammed.
I don't know.
Doesn't matter.
It's all good. So...
Actually, it does matter because of how much Wham was referenced in the Deadpool romance in the movie. So I guess that's kind of on topic.
Classic.
That was like one of my favorite things about that movie was just how much he revealed himself to love Wham.
Yeah.
Wham. And he's like, then they added the explanation point.
There's a funny movie called Keanu with Key and Peele where they're trying to act like the gangsters and stuff. They're like, listen to some hardcore edgy music to try to infiltrate a gang to get their cat back that they stole. And so like, let's play some awesome rap. And they hit the music with some like awesome like gang stuff. And it's like, Careless Whisper. What is this? He's like, never heard of Wham? They're the hardest people you've ever met. And it's great. And there's a scene where George Michael has a cameo in it.
That gives me some ideas for a topic that we discussed right before the episode that I just realized that we can't talk about on air yet because we haven't revealed it. So I'll tell you after the episode what I just thought of.
Oh, Okay, cool.
Because
anyway,
yeah.
I feel like when you talk about comics and romances, is it has a long history with comics. Like there's always been a history of the brave hero saving the damsel in distress, typically, and ever since before comics, it's always been a thing back in medieval tales and things like that. So it's always had like a big kind of idea, like the guy gets the girl at the end, which people don't always like. It's all good, but in comics, though, it's been always really kind of popular. And after the 1940s, superhero comics kind of died off. And one of the big things that replaced it at the time was romance comics. This comics about romance stories, and they're scandalous and Pulp Fictions, and that's when actually this comic called Archie came out that is still going to this day. It's just a slice of life team soap opera comic romance.
Now, didn't some of those end up being like so popular that they were published in like the Sunday funnies? Like
absolutely, yeah.
And I just remember now I know kind of where that art style came from, because I don't know, I always found the contrast between something like a Sunday funny and a romance comic to be like really awkward and strange.
It's a thin line. They walk.
It's really weird, but I think just because of how old the superhero comics were back then and who they were marketing themselves toward, which was kind of like guys, kids, and I guess some teens. Like
it was very common for adults to get in paper, pick up a comic for the kid. That's how most of them got sold typically. Just they're still on newspaper stands, and it's like, I'm grabbed the Sunday paper so I know what's going on with the Wall Street bank market crash. And it's like, oh, and here's this weird Action Comics #1 for my son. He'll love this. And then that kid's rich now. But yeah. Yeah,
and I mean, it's generally for boys. So of course there's going to be, the hot girl that the superhero kind of saves and is, and I don't know. I think that's always a trope that in I don't want to go right into this, but let's be honest.
Older?
In male-dominated industries,
yeah,
it's always something that happens, and I think that's kind of why it's remained such a staple in comics. But also why
it's definitely changed for the better, though.
It's changed
a
recently.
lot better, I think, in comics at least.
Yeah, but the tradition from the past, it was that way. But that's also partially why the romances have been so bad, because let's be honest, what do men know about romance?
It's a male fantasy kind of like that.
Yeah.
Nerd wish fulfillment.
Happy Valentine's Day, guys.
Yes, we're calling out ourselves. It's all good. Shoot, what was I going to say? I don't know. But yeah. But they were still very popular, though. And they are still technically popular if you look at, Archie comics still being around. People love the whole, Archie, will he date Betty and Veronica or something like that? Because it has a whole TV show now called Riverdale. People were kind of like that stuff, but it's still popular. And I think we're actually going to talk about Archie comic at some point here in the future.
Oh.
During our other publisher month.
Oh, you didn't tell me about, unless you did, and tuned out by accident.
An episode, not today.
Not today. Yeah, but yeah. I'm still looking at
because Archie Comics is one of the oldest publishers there is, and it's still around. It's got some.
Do you know what year off of your head?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
If you know, let us know. Hey,
tweet at us, please.
We want people. Please don't have anyone tweet at us. We're so lonely.
We've been begging you guys for weeks to tweet at us, and so far the only people who have tweeted at us have been comic book writers and illustrators, which is awesome.
Usually have to tag them first before I do that.
Yeah, but we'd like people who listen to tweet at us too.
Yeah, thank you.
All three of you.
It's all good. But when we look at comics and romances, there's usually a few different types we typically look at. I feel like they all have their own way. I don't know, way of
I would argue that so there are you've got 4 subcategories on here.
There's definitely more.
There's definitely more. I would argue. So I would argue all of them are bad, in the sense that none of them operate the way a healthy relationship should.
Well, superheroes aren't exactly healthy people.
No, they aren't. And one of the cool things about comics is how they explore the horrible psychology that goes along with being a superhero, because you have to be kind of screwed up to choose that life.
Moon Knight.
Yeah, Moon Knight is the classic example. Well, more of an exaggerated
how did your last relationship end? Oh, she saw me wearing my enemy's face on my face. And she didn't like that for some reason.
She didn't like that for some reason.
I don't know why she didn't like that. She's so not cool about it, you know?
She just doesn't understand.
It's expression. It was a prank. There's a camera over there.
She doesn't get it that I'm possessed by an ancient god. She doesn't like him.
Oh God, we're losers.
But I would argue that even the ones that are the classic ones are, pretty unstable and have their problems. And part of the reason for that is just it's a story. Any story that has romance in it, there's never been a story that was interesting that was about romance, where the romance has been stable, because of course the romance is a plot device to add tension, to add a character that you care about, and of course you care if it's like you don't want your ship to die, you know what I mean?
Of course, yeah.
And so of course they're gonna put it in jeopardy constantly. I guess
why? Because it sells comics.
Because it sells comics. It also makes comic book fans very upset.
Comic book writers hate stable romances typically.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a perfect example of it we're going to talk about where they did Spider-Man dirty, but it's all good.
Ooh, are we referring to Mary Jane?
Yes. Want to do it right now?
Yes.
Okay,
let's go ahead.
We're already on this topic.
Because Mary Jane is a mess.
Yeah.
Can I just say this? She's horribly selfish, I think.
In your opinion, if you're looking at just the Spider-Man movies?
No, I'm looking at the Spider-Man movies and the comics. She just appears to be super self-centered.
Depends on who's writing it.
I mean, yeah. And she has her moments. She's not selfish all the time, but it just in general, it seems like she cares. She doesn't... Firstly, she doesn't know... where to even begin with her? I don't think anyone likes her.
A lot of people do like her. She's honestly Spider-Man's longest-lasting relationship. Like, you argue, like, Gwen Stacy was more important, but she got killed, so that's not important. But she was, like, since the 70s. There was on again, off again. And they eventually got married, and they were married for, like, 30 years straight.
And then, like, everyone's memory got wiped or something?
Not like that.
There was, like...
So what happened was, there was this writer named Dan Slott. He wrote Spider-Man for 10 years straight, which some people might think is maybe a bit too long because he ran out of ideas. But I love Chris Claremont, and he wrote X-Men for 15 years. But we're not going to talk about that because he's flawless. But he wrote for 10 years, and at some point he kind of started running out of ideas because he can only do so much with a character who's married. He wanted to have... Marvel wanted Spider-Man to open up to more possible relationships. And with him being married, he can't exactly do that and keep Spider-Man's, like... identity's sake, or like, Spider-Man cheated on his wife. Oh no, that's not how Spider-Man does.
That's the point I wanted to make, is that Spider-Man is one of the few superheroes that I think is, for the most part, a rather stable person.
Yeah, him and Superman.
And him and Superman, although Superman has his moments depending upon the world that he's in, like the universe.
Yeah.
Because like there was one point where he turned evil or something, but
it happens a lot. It's all good.
Yeah,
writers like that.
Spider-Man, I think that's one of the reasons he's liked so much. But because of that, it means that all of his girls have to be the crazy ones in order for that to work. As
Not
like
really. Gwen Stacy wasn't crazy.
Yeah, but crazy or die.
Yeah. But what happened with Mary Jane though? What happened is sorry. So what Dan Slott did, he decided, I'm going to make Spider-Man unmarried in the most dumb and stupid way possible. So what happened was Aunt May, his 80-year-old aunt, who's basically already on death's door, gets shot, and so she's dying. And Spider-Man's like, oh no, I don't want my aunt to die. And then the Marvel's devil Mephisto pops up, and is like, hey, listen up. I'll revive your 80-year-old aunt, make her live for, a few years more if you sell me your marriage. And he's like, cool, I'm down. Mary Jane, we cool? Yep, we're cool. Let's go.
But then there was something about, what was it? Did they make everyone... Didn't the devil make everyone except for those two remember, forget that they were even married or something?
think so.
And then she was like, why didn't I get to forget too, or something like that. I was doing some research and I read a bunch of timelines about it, and she was just a total horrible person about it. Because they could have, after that, they still had some on again, off again stuff, and they remained like close. But they could have totally like been together again. I don't understand.
But that wouldn't be good for her. It made a lot of people angry because they're like, they're a classic romance, and you ended it to save his 80-year-old aunt.
Yeah,
people didn't like it, but
and he was throughout the whole thing. I'm pretty sure he was still torn up about Gwen Stacy, like even through their marriage.
He's always torn up about Gwen.
He's always torn up about it. So
it's arguably his biggest mistake.
Yeah. So like throughout the entire thing, even though Spider-Man's a stand-up dude, just other things that happen to him and people that he meets end up being what makes his situations complicated, instead of in situations like, say, for example, Batman, where it's because Batman's just messed up that a lot of times bad things happen.
But Spider-Man's had a lot of relationships, so
yeah,
like most of them kind of end poorly. Like my favorite one of his was he dated this character named Black Cat, which is like a burglar, but she could handle herself, so like she couldn't really get captured and like traumatized because she could beat up the bad guy because she knew what she was doing.
Yeah,
so it was healthy. But the big problem that made him end in the first place was that Spider-Man took off his mask, like, hey, I'm Peter Parker, and that freaked her out because she was in love with Peter Parker. She was in love with Spider-Man, and she ended right there. And I think that was the worst writing they ever did for that character. I think it was stupid. That was stupid.
Wasn't there also a situation where Spider-Man's identity becomes revealed, and then Mary Jane and Aunt May have to go hide away, and it causes problems in this relationship? Yeah,
that's called Civil War. People really don't.
That was
people
like the first
love
Civil
that
War,
comic,
not the real
but they hate
Civil
it.
War, not the later Civil War.
Civil War, the comic event, not Civil War 2, and not the American Civil War.
Yeah, they're like there's
back in 1865, Spider-Man revealed his identity.
No, the Civil War from the movies is different from the Civil War from the comics.
Yeah, it's different.
Yeah,
much more tame.
Yeah,
much less character assassination.
Yeah, so it's weird but Spider-Man overall is probably one of the tamest situations. I, in my research, got really wrapped up in Batman's romances because they're so much more complicated and so weird.
Dumb? I don't know, I guess. He has a lot of them.
He has a lot of them.
Every single Batman movie has a different romance.
I know. There's a lot of them, like, okay, so what I found out is that, like, in the early comics, a lot of times what they did is instead of having him have relationships or flirtatious situations with him as Batman, they would instead have relationship situations with him as Bruce Wayne, and then have Batman get in the way, which I guess makes more sense. It's not as twisted. It's more of like a stand-up kind of relationship. But they never end up working, of course, because he's never home. He's constantly out fighting crime, So he loses people a lot.
Yeah. One people you can really keep are the ones who know that he's both Batman and Bruce Wayne. Like, you have Talia al Ghul, which technically raped him, but we're not going to talk about that.
Didn't know that.
Well, yeah, so she drugged him and was like, you're going to give me an heir. And he's like, cool. I don't know what's going on now. And they did it. And then he has a son named Damian Wayne now. We talked about it last week.
I knew about Damian Wayne.
Yeah, he's from that event.
Oh, my gosh.
And then you have Catwoman, who knows he's both Batman and Bruce Wayne, and they're always in love. It's actually kind of nice.
Yeah, Catwoman's the one I like the most.
However, that really made people angry this year, because so what happened was they had this, for the whole year, they're hyping up the big Batman Catwoman wedding event that's going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like a $5 issue, which is expensive for comics. Like, comics range about between like $2.99 to $4.99 typically.
It was a big one though.
It was the wedding special. It sells a lot of money.
It was like larger than a regular comic, wasn't it?
Yes.
So
what happened was Catwoman left them at the altar.
Oh yeah.
And then 1 week later, Marvel had a big comic book wedding event where between Kitty Pryde and Colossus, and guess what? Kitty Pryde left Colossus at the altar, and the comic community was outraged because they are both special and like $1 more than typical price.
Give me back my dollar.
However, they did do a thing wedding comic this year, and guess what? They got married. But it's a miracle.
The thing is with Catwoman, she had like a reason. I don't agree with her reason, but she's like, if Batman was to settle down with me, he would probably stop. I mean, if Batman, did I say Batman or Batwoman? Whatever.
Batman. You're good.
If he would stop being Batman, all the good that he's done would cease because of me, because he would settle down.
Would it though? But he's a whole Batman family, like literally an army of bad people who can also do just as well what he's been doing. And also in alternate universe,
they can do just as well.
In the Earth 2 universe back in the 60s, Batman and Catwoman got married and had a kid, and they both stayed Batman and Catwoman.
Yeah.
But she doesn't know that though, because she's in trouble.
She doesn't know that, and I don't know. I think that she ultimately was, although it might have been bad reasoning, was ultimately trying to do the right thing, and I think eventually, Batman and Catwoman will get back together into their on and off, on again, off again.
Because people like that. It's like cat and mouse.
Yeah.
They really complement each other well. Cause it's like, well, first off, bad guy, good guy, but they're always chasing each other. People like that.
So there was some other romances with Batman that were less clear and not talked about as much and a little harder to research.
Yeah, they're kind of confusing. He has a lot. Like, you have Jezebel Jet. No one cares about that one. No one likes her. Silver St. Cloud. She was just a rich girl trying to get under Batman's cowl.
Apparently, Poison Ivy hinted at the fact that she actually real life liked him.
Yeah, so she took over the mansion and somehow by taking over the mansion art plants, she didn't figure out that he was Batman too. I don't know. I guess plants don't like caves, but it's all good. But she kind of fell in love. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird. I shouldn't have done it like that.
The thing is that no one knows whether or not she actually likes him or not, because her whole power is partially, the seduction thing.
Yeah.
So
we only know of two real healthy relationships that Poison Ivy is kind of actually into, and one Swamp Thing, which is just fun. I love Swamp Thing. And two is Harley Quinn.
Ooh.
It's been apparently reported that they got married in one universe, actually, but yeah.
But Harley Quinn, speaking of horrible relationships, Harley Quinn and the Joker is...
Yeah, it's not a good relationship. Stop putting your tattoos of, he's my Joker to my Harley Quinn. No, that's not healthy. I'm sorry.
It's really messed up. The Joker is horribly abusive to Harley Quinn. Horribly so.
It's why the Poison Ivy hates him.
It's psychological and physical.
Yeah.
It's awful. He's,
it's the worst
dumped her
in
into, off cliffs and into rockets, and just... and she
beats her.
Yeah.
Makes her wear his cut-off face. What's with comics and cutting off faces? I don't like that.
I mean, it makes sense in Batman and Moon Knight.
I guess. No. Carry on, though.
The Joker's twisted.
Yeah.
And so is Harley, to be fair.
Yeah.
Less twisted.
Granted, Harley Quinn doesn't always have the best writing, though. But she's still a big fan-favorite character, though. People love her.
I don't understand why people even became enamored with the whole Suicide Squad thing.
It's been around since the 60s.
I know, but recently, it's everyone wants to identify themselves with the Joker and with Harley Quinn. And I feel like people who want that don't really know anything about the characters.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's just a pop culture thing, and that's just sad.
It is sad.
Because it's why would you, like you said with the tattoos and stuff, a tattoo is something that you have forever, and you don't even know what you're putting on yourself.
Yeah.
It's just weird. Whatever.
I don't like it. It's not a good relationship. But if we're going to talk about poor hero and villain romances, we have to talk about the king of them, and that's Daredevil. Daredevil has had the most I'm going to date my villain. Why? I don't know. Plot twist, it's going to end poorly. But his first big one was Daredevil and Elektra. So Elektra was his old college girlfriend who became a ninja assassin. And it's always Elektra, don't kill people. What? Stab. Elektra, no!
I think that's hilarious in a horrible way.
It's a perfect characterization. And it was... they're always at odds because they love each other, but also they hate each other because, the opposite ideologies. And eventually, in a big issue, Elektra gets killed, which is a big point for Daredevil, and one of the parts of goes by Mark Miller. I don't know.
I feel like that happens a lot with any kind of hero and villain romance kind of situation. And honestly, if we're being completely honest here, that plot line, which has been used several times in comics, would never happen. If it was
what do you mean?
If superheroes were real life, That would just never happen. No hero is gonna date the villain who's like
yeah, it would.
legit killed people. I don't believe it for a second.
Because it's the forbidden fruit. For example, you have people who date people who they really shouldn't. You have we all know that one guy who's dating that girl who's psycho crazy, but he's like, oh, I love her. Or that one girl who's dating.
Yeah, but we're talking about adults, not high schoolers.
And
like adults that, like the heroes.
You don't know a single adult who's dating someone who isn't good for them, or married to someone who isn't good for them.
Yeah, but they're not legit criminals with complete opposite ideologies.
Yeah,
There's
but
always something.
They're two extremes, though. One's jumping off capes fighting criminals. One's jumping off capes. One's jumping off buildings wearing a cape fighting criminals. One's jumping off buildings being a criminal. How can you not?
I don't know. I mean, you make a good point.
Also, there's a whole in psychology, I think, called the mere exposure effect. The more you're around something, the more you're going to be attracted to it. And so with superheroes, if they keep busting the same person over, that's a lot of mere exposure going on there. So, like, dang, Calvin looks pretty good in that, skin-tight catsuit.
I guess I see your point.
Just going to adjust my back belt real quick. This is a family show. I'm sorry.
Oh, this episode's amazing.
Thank you. But Daredevil had Daredevil and Elektra. But he also dated this character named Typhoid Mary, another assassin with bipolar disorder, which wasn't a good bipolar disorder. It's complicated. Who's also a villain. I think she died. I don't know. But a villain. Didn't end up well. He dated Black Cat, who also dated Spider-Man. Also technically a villain. Dated her because she's like, hey, why not? Let's do this. And also technically Echo, who's kind of a hero, though.
Yeah, didn't that end badly for Spider-Man, too?
Spider-Man?
Yeah, because...
Spider-Man Black Cat?
Yeah.
Always ends well. Ends horribly.
Yeah.
Because...
When was that? Like, was that in between the Mary Jane thing?
So the first time he broke up with her, because of, like, the whole, you're Spider-Man. I can't handle that. I don't like Peter Parker, was, like, the 60s.
Oh, yeah.
But recently they had another, spin. It was, what's it called? Shoot. After the whole, ending marriage thing, they had another romance where they kind of a one-night stand. Then they broke off again. It was actually pretty good. It was run by Kevin Smith, I think. It was fun.
I just don't like Mary Jane.
Yeah. But then also, they installed a thing called Superior Spider-Man. It's when Doc Ock took over Spider-Man's body for, a year.
Oh, my goodness.
You either love it or you hate it.
Weird. I read about that, and I was like, that's weird.
Yeah, you either love it or you hate it. But he beats up Black Cat, and she becomes the villain. And for the next, 5 years, she was character assassinated. She acted out of character, was like a mob boss, an actual criminal, and no one liked it.
Wait,
nobody liked it. Black Cat.
But there was also, a relationship between Mary Jane and Doc Ock, but in Spider-Man's body or something like that.
Possibly. I can't remember. I'd try to avoid Superior Spider-Man.
I read about this, and Doc Ock was in Spider-Man's body. He got back with Mary Jane until Mary Jane found out that it was Doc Ock, and then Mary Jane was like,
That's not the worst thing to happen, I'm pretty sure. So, Doc Ock was going to marry Aunt May in one comic issue. But it didn't go through. Hold up here. However,
she's 80.
But he's also kind of old. But, later, whenever Superior Spider-Man happened, when Doc Ock takes over, Peter Parker also gets memories of Doc Ock, which apparently that night in Doc Ock's prison cell, Aunt May visited him, and then it cuts to black. Yeah. Peter Parker had to experience that.
Oh no. Yeah.
Not fun.
Not a fan.
I'm not a fan of that.
Idea.
A lot of people love it because it's edgy Spider-Man, but I don't like it.
Sometimes I think that they just take Spider-Man too far because he's popular.
It was an interesting
idea
though.
They want.
Because he was technically a more superior Spider-Man. He was actually getting rid of criminals off the street and taking them out, but also he was a jerk the whole time.
It's such an anime idea though to be body switch. I don't know. It's weird.
Don't you dare cite anime when Freaky Friday did it first.
Well, I'm sure they did, but let me tell you, it's been done to death over in Japan.
I don't watch anime, so I don't know.
Sure.
I seriously don't. But, however, we can't touch on some of the standing romances. One of the longest lasting comic romances that have not, divorced or broken up has been Mr. Fantastic and Invisible Woman. They got married in, the 60s, I think. I don't know. 70s. It's easy to point at. But they've never divorced, actually. Like, they've had, like, some hard moments in their time, but they never actually stopped being Mr. and Mrs. Reed Richards. Which is healthy, I don't know, but
it's
also...
healthy, but let's be honest, Fantastic Four isn't that interesting a lot of the time.
Yeah, it depends on who's writing it.
So, like, I feel like if... I don't know.
Or we can also look at Superman and Lois Lane. They've always been always together, always have a strong couple. But except for the New 52, they're like, no more of that. Let's have Superman date Wonder Woman, which people don't like sometimes.
I don't like that idea either.
I thought it was fun.
Lois Lane is the ultimate ship for Superman because that's just the way it's always been, and that's the way it should always be.
And Smallville did it, so I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you also have The Flash and Iris West. It's kind of a classic. They've always been together. She's his lightning rod. So when Flash goes too fast, he goes into Speed Force. And if he doesn't have something to connect himself back home, he'll get absorbed into the Speed Force and just stop existing for a bit. But if he has this thing called a lightning rod that he latches onto, which is something that keeps him grounded to Earth. And for him, that's always his Iris West, which is kind of a nice idea, kind of cute. But also, yeah.
Man, I need to read more Flash comics. Every time we talk about Flash, I'm like, man, that's awesome.
I totally get into it, man. Honestly. Flash is a fun character.
So I just thought of some more bad ones.
Yeah? Which ones?
Rogue and Magneto. Wait, did I get those? No, not
No,
Rogue.
you got it right.
Yeah.
Yep, you got it right.
Yeah.
It didn't last long.
But it's a thing.
It was a thing.
And it's bad.
It was bad.
It was bad.
It didn't last long, though.
Yeah.
Like, there was other romances happened. There was a Deadpool Wasp one that got kind of thrown on.
That's weird because Ant-Man and Wasp were supposed to be a thing.
Yeah, but
I know that Ant-Man did Wasp dirty, I guess you could say,
in the Ultimate Universe. But yeah, so there's this comic thing called Secret Wars where this alien being takes the heroes and villains from Earth and puts them on the planet, has them fight each other. But recently there was a Deadpool comic that was like kind of retcon a little bit, which turns out Deadpool was actually there, but he had a romance with Wasp in it, apparently. It was fun, but no one remembers it because reasons.
So can you explain, okay, I need some explanation on the whole Ant-Man and Wasp thing, because the way Ant-Man has been portrayed to me, because I haven't read the comics, I've only seen the movie, I'll be honest, and I haven't seen the new one, because I didn't think it was out yet, and then I just found out that it was out.
Okay.
The Ant-Man does not seem like the abusive type.
Okay, so a few things. First off, the Ant-Man in the movies is the Scott Lang Ant-Man and not Hank Pym. So that's a different part right there. So Scott Lang is more of a nicer guy. I like Scott Lang more as Ant-Man. But Hank Pym, his whole thing is the whole shrinking and growing has kind of messed up his brain. And so in one comic back in the 80s, he kind of slapped Wasp. That's kind of a normal thing, like, oh, my wife's being bad, spank her. It was the 50s and 60s. It happens.
Ugh.
But it's changed. But in the Ultimate Universe, so Marvel did this thing called the Ultimate Universe. It was the whole supposed to be more realistic universe, and by realistic, well, Brian Michael Bendis made a more realistic Spider-Man. People loved it. But other writers who were on it decided to make it as edgy or as messed up as possible. Like, they had Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, a brother and sister, have a romance. It was weird. Or they had the Blob eat the Wasp on panel. And did a lot of weird things that people didn't like. And it's part of the reason that the Ultimate Universe failed. But one of it was Ant-Man and Wasp had an abusive relationship. He beat her all the time. And at one point, Captain America gets involved and beats him up in the giant form. And it was actually a really cool panel seeing Captain America lay him out, because Hank Pym in the Ultimate Universe is extremely unlikable. And I don't like it. It was stupid. They should not have done that.
Okay, so he's not...
Technically...
In like every other time that Ant-Man is around, he's not that bad. It's only in that ultra, quote, realistic, edgy universe.
As far as my knowledge is, yes, but there is one panel in like the 60s where he did like, bang, strike.
Okay.
People think it's like, oh, but it is noted that the Pym particles, after so much use, does make his mind mentally unstable. Which they kind of like touched on, I guess, in the Ant-Man movie, where it's like, I can't use it again because it's messing up with my brain. He kind of like yells at it, I hope, like, no, we're not doing that. Can like goes off the handle, but I don't know. It was minor detail.
I feel like Ant-Man, I don't know. I think there needs to be more from Ant-Man. Because there could be a lot to be explored with that.
There could be a lot to be explored
besides just
with
the edgy universe stuff. Because I kind of don't consider the edgy universe stuff to be the actual character. It's not like real.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like a side what if concept.
They might have went into more. I can't really remember, but it's. I'll look into it for you, or you can look into it. It doesn't matter. I mean, he's also had a lot of romances. We're not going to worry about that, though.
Yeah.
But you want to talk about some more stable ones?
Sure.
One of the best ones, most stable romances in comic, is between Swamp Thing and Abigail Arcane. I love it. It's great.
I don't almost know nothing about Swamp Thing.
We're going to do an episode on it eventually, so you'll have to. I'll give you a comic to read. You'll love it. It's great.
Okay.
It's written by Alan Moore, one of the best comic book writers ever. And Hope Thing, in his run where this happened, it's written through their Vertical run, which is more of an adult-based comic, more realistic. Characters aged in it. It was kind of like a separate universe, but also in the universe. Like, so characters age.
I appreciate that because I mean some of these. Okay, do you know how old some of these characters would be if they aged in the actual universe?
Superman would be literally dead by now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, unless he's an exception because he's immortal because he's an alien or something. But whatever.
However, I will note, Namor, his continuity still says he was born in the 30s, and he's still looking pretty young.
I would say, out of all the Supermen that there are only a few superheroes that I think actually give a justification for why they're still alive. I think Wolverine is one, and Superman is one. Why is Batman still alive? No one knows. He should be.
Well, they also reboot the universe.
Old. Well, that too. He would still be pretty old at this point, though.
Well, they changed this, so he was a kid, roughly now, back when Space Jam was a movie in theaters.
Okay.
Fine. So in continuity, it's quite possible that Bruce Wayne and his parents got mugged coming out of Space Jam. It's quite possible.
Oh no!
Go on, Sam.
He has just these horrible triggered memories every time he sees anything to do with Space Jam or Michael Jordan.
My parents. I don't know, but yeah. So Vertigo was a really cool run. It was darker, had a lot of cool ideas, more creator license, I guess. It's well worth a check out if you ever want something cool because Neil Gaiman, the author, writes a lot of. I love Neil Gaiman. Writes a lot of Vertigo comics. He has like Sandman, which is one of the best comics ever. Yeah, Lucifer, which is a TV show.
Is Sandman like his own thing, or like?
So Sandman was a character since the 40s, but he took Sandman and was like, I'm gonna make another Sandman. He's actually this interdimensional being who controls all of our dreams.
So this isn't Spider-Man
it's like
Sandman.
Idyllic. No. This is a DC Sandman.
Oh, okay, I was confused for a second.
No. So it's a character named Morpheus. He lives in this other dimensional world called the Dream on the outside of the universe. That's where all our dreams exist, all of our ideas. And he can talk to us through dreams and stuff. And he's part of these, like, immortal beings, like...
This sounds awesome.
It's awesome. But the best character in it is a character named Death. It's this punk rock, like... It's the embodiment of death. And it's just like...
I'm Death.
She's just, like, a punk rock goth girl. It's just like, why did I die? This is all I get. I just go. And he's like, you got what everyone got. A lifetime. And it's boom. I love it. Do you want to talk about One Day?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I love it. It's so cool. One of the best writers ever. Yeah, Spider-Man Gwen Stacy, they were pretty stable until she died.
See, Gwen Stacy's the most infuriating romance in all of comic book history because Spider-Man is a normal, like, mostly stable guy. Gwen is a mostly stable person. And so they had to fix that. They couldn't just let a good thing happen to Spider-Man, so they kill her.
But it was an important event, though. But when we talk about that, though, we get into the topic of the whole woman refrigerators movement. You want to talk about that?
Oh, yeah.
We got 20 minutes, so might as well touch on it. So, as you know, a lot of our characters, female characters in romances, kind of get killed off. And it's like a big point in characters. Or gets hurt, or something bad happens.
They become the damsel in distress, or the damsel that's now dead because they were in distress.
Yes, but this kind of came to catharsis in the late 90s. with Green Lantern comics. So it wasn't a Hal Jordan Green Lantern. It was a guy named Kyle Rayner. And like 4 issues beforehand, a character was created. I can't remember her name. I think it was. We'll go real quick. Keep talking, Levi. Give me a song.
I'm never gonna dance again.
The guilty feet have got no rhythm.
Though it's easy to pretend.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
So his girlfriend was named Alexandra DeWitt. She was made like 6 issues before she got killed off, just to get killed off. What happened was this character named Major Force chopped her up and threw her in the refrigerator, and that's how he found her. And so this writer named Gail Simone, she's still big into comic community. She made us a page that like, this is uncalled for. Characters are getting killed off just for the sake of a male story, and it's kind of wrong. And I'm just going to make this whole list of characters who either got hurt or death in comics to forward a male agenda. Now, depending on how you look at it, there's pros and cons of this, honestly.
Now, wait, this was in the 90s, right?
Late 90s.
Late 90s,
Yes.
okay. Because that's important when you're looking at stuff like this, because I'd say that, comics from the 50s and the 40s and the 30s and, like, stuff like that, if that was to happen, a lot of romances were just to serve the male.
Yeah, but they're also more stable, because it was more like...
Because there's a male fantasy.
So back in that time, there was a thing called the Comic Book Code Authority. It was this big corporate thing that it controlled what comics put out. So if you had something that I didn't like, it wouldn't get a stamp, and parents wouldn't buy that for kids because it had adult content, and so it controlled. So you couldn't have Spider-Man smoking a cigar and banging Gwen Stacy. They wouldn't allow that, and it was always kind of fun because so they'd have to follow these set of standards. But occasionally a comic would release because they want to do an anti-drug message. So with Green Arrow, what they did was, turns out Speedy's a heroin addict, and the Comic Book Authority didn't like that. It's like, hey, you can't publish that with our seal of approval. And like, okay, we'll publish it anyway. And the comic sold hundreds because it was an important issue. It's weird. Comic Book Authority was wild, but that's not important.
So they no longer follow that. I know that.
Yeah, it's
dead. Was it when they started doing that, like the Speedy thing, that it started to die out?
It started to die off because people started taking it seriously because realized comics could sell without the stamp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I also think it was just part of the times, is that everything was kind of squeaky clean at that point in history.
It's still technically around, but comics don't submit to the Comic Book Authority anymore.
Okay. Why do they even...
Well,
why do they even still exist?
I don't know.
They must have depressing jobs. I'm sorry.
I think it's a government thing.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's kind of like...
There's one guy in the office just like, please, someone just send me a comic to read.
Yeah. I just want a comic.
It can have the worst thing in there. I'll stamp it. It's all good. So give me something.
Yeah, it's kind of like the whole parental warning that's on CDs now that is not even needed anymore.
Yeah.
And it's a marketing thing.
That's exactly what it is.
If you see it on the CD, they didn't submit that to the government. They just put it on the album art.
Yeah. But I can go back and look at all my dad's old comics, and they all have a Comic Code Authority stamp on it. If you any comic pad before the 80s will have a stamp on it.
So when it was the 80s and they kind of broke free of that, there was probably kind of an uptick of the kinds of things that she's talking about.
More violence, more torture, more sex. That's when Vertigo kind of came big. I think they mostly though stuck within the guidelines of the whole do it off panel.
And I think that this whole edgy thing kind of came to a fever pitch with the 90s when everything got super edgy.
Yes.
And then it kind of balanced out after that. But I think that's why she kind of said what she said.
She had a point, yeah.
Yeah, because it was getting to the point where it was getting ridiculous. And
absolutely.
It was still definitely a male-dominated industry at the time. I mean, it still is, but it's less so now. Mm-hmm. And so, a lot of stories just kind of fed into that.
Yeah. However, I will say some examples she lists, I don't think it's really the best example. So, she lists Gwen Stacy as one being killed for a male story. But Gwen Stacy, though, was, I feel like they handled it better. Because, she died for a reason. Her death had consequences, and she stayed dead. She didn't die just Spider-Man event, but bring her back, technically. She's technically back due to the different universe. But, the main Gwen Stacy is still dead. Her death had an impact, and it's just an example. Sorry.
And you know what? I agree with you, but the Gwen Stacy death still pisses me off because it was the one stable person in Spider-Man's life besides Aunt May that didn't die.
I feel like the big thing is they didn't create the characters to die, though. She created
Oh yeah.
So like,
yeah, I agree.
It's a touchy issue. It's one of the most touchiest issues in comics right now. That and diversity.
Yeah, which we shouldn't even touch right now.
I'm not gonna touch that right now because I don't want to get kicked off the air.
But I mean, this is definitely a problem that isn't just a problem in comics. It's a problem that's in like every single male-dominated industry, including like video games and things like that. And I don't want to pretend like in all of these industries that's all women exist for, because it's not true.
It's not.
It's just there just a little bit, you know. Like for example, in video games, most women in video games are like in really, you know, tight-fitting, not protective outfits.
And in comics too.
And in comics,
you ever see Vampirella?
Yeah.
She's basically wearing a mankini.
Except it's not a mankini.
It's a girl wearing a mankini.
It's a girl wearing a mankini.
Or like, there's this one comic publisher, I can't remember what it's called. It's like Dreamscape or something like that. All their covers are a scantily clad woman, but the stories are like actually well written. I don't read it because I don't want to touch those covers. But yeah,
and it's just it
sells because technically comics and one poll was found to be 51% woman readers, which depends on who you're asking. Sometimes
I don't know
surveys
if I
aren't
agree
reliable.
with that. That doesn't seem to make sense to me. But maybe that's just the stereotype.
I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to word it.
Never gonna dance again.
This got really serious.
It's kind of a serious topic, and I think that it's something that needs to be thought of, and
it's definitely changed a lot in recent years.
It has definitely changed a lot, and you know, I think that part of what's changed it really a big part of the problem is just nerd culture in general has had that issue in it.
Yeah, nerds have a lot of gatekeeping.
Yeah, and a lot of nerds don't like it when women start like getting into their chili because they see it as fake, because they just don't.
Yeah, and some examples.
Although it's changing.
Also, in doing a lot of this is that they're changing a lot of characters because of it, which people don't like a lot. Because like they're, I don't know. I'm sorry.
They need to keep the integrity of the original character as well. Yeah. Like we have to just accept that that's what things were like in the past, and just do things differently now. Let's not change the entire story just to try and make it better because there were mistakes made in the past.
The point when the whole like people getting mad because heroes changing, I can point on it with a finger easily. Well, technically in Crisis 2 where Flash got killed and Wally West took his place, people didn't like it kind of like, but it was okay. But I think the big point when this started happening is there's a comic in 2006 called Flash Rebirth, where they brought Barry Allen back to life, and he was the Flash. Now, Wally West had been Flash for 10 whole years, and people loved him. He had a continuity and stuff like that. They kind of just threw him aside because he can't be Flash anymore because Barry Allen is back. And with that, a lot more heroes came back, like Hal Jordan, the original Green Lantern, came back. So Kyle Rayner, the present Green Lantern, was kind of just sidelined. After that, you can't really. After those two events, a lot of characters really can't change. Like we had some revolving characters coming around, different characters coming on. So Kyle Rayner was well liked, but because he was a different Green Lantern. We had a different Green Arrow at the time. We had a different Flash at the time. We had different Hawk Girl. So characters were changing. But after the rebirth runs of Flash, not the new rebirth, but Flash Reborn, where Barry Allen comes back, and all the old heroes came back, there's a lot more. I feel like more holding on to what the characters are. You can't really. I feel like that's the catharsis is right there. I'm sorry, that was just my personal rant right there.
So, at that point, it was more about keeping the characters what they were.
Yeah, because Barry Allen is Flash now. Mm-hmm. Wally West can't be the Flash, no matter how much people like it. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think that people... I think, it's kind of like when DC reboots their universe. It's a little different than...
It's always Barry Allen.
When DC reboots their universe, they keep it for a while. Whereas I think Marvel kind of has a lot more continuity. It's kind of like that.
Yeah. Because Marvel would have having a horrible time trying to change their characters because people don't like it. But that's the topic for a different day, though. And the Marvel's big problem.
But yeah, it's just
Yeah.
it's just nerd culture in general doesn't like. There's a lot, like you said, a lot of gatekeeping, and I think it's not really nerd culture. It's just when you have a lot of people who really care about something.
Yes. They hold on to it.
They hold on to it, and they don't want anybody else into it that they think is other, because they see them as enemies or as like fake in general. And when you're in a traditionally male-dominated industry like video games and comics, and you see women starting to get involved, you're like, they all have to be fake because
Comicsgate.
Yeah, and
talk about that.
Yeah,
Comicsgate. I see both sides of the issue. They both make sense to me, but I'll give my opinion on it at a later date. More romances?
I don't know if we have.
We have a few more.
Oh,
We have a few more.
I do want to say that I think that Comicsgate and Gamergate did happen around the same time, didn't they?
Gamergate. I never heard of Gamergate.
It's basically the same thing as
Cool.
Comicsgate. It's women representation in video games and stuff like that.
Interesting.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, but
it was a
Comicsgate was about
big issue.
5 years ago, I think.
Yeah, Gamergate was it was like 3-ish years ago, and it lasted a long time. There were like a lot of gaming journalists, women gaming journalists that got attacked and like got death threats from like gamers and stuff. It was a big deal.
It's a big deal in the comic industry right now.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Fallout. I don't know. It's dumb.
This is the big transitional period between what it was and what nerd culture is about to become or is already.
I feel like this could very well kill the comic industry.
No,
No, it's not. It's not.
no.
It's the lack of
It's
sales
just
that's
going to change a
kill it.
little bit.
It's the lack of sales that's going to kill it.
No.
Because, yeah.
It might get a little smaller. There might be a few growing
Back
pains,
when
but it's not going to.
it's definitely still with the growing pains. Because when I first started, Marvel comics especially kind of had like a little rough go. The content wasn't that great. But now it's kind of hit a stride now where things are getting better. There's a lot more better comics coming out of Marvel right now, I think.
Yeah.
So,
And there was a time, like, what was it, in the 40s you said, that the comics weren't doing so hot?
and it changed. The format changed. Westerns became popular. War stories became popular. Romances became popular. But and horror comics, I feel like it'd be really cool if horror comics came back.
That would be cool.
I would
Although I
love
feel
that.
like horror has already kind of had its thing only a few years ago with a lot of horror indie video games, and I think that's where the market went. I don't know if it's going to come back to comics yet, because I feel like people are already tired
Recently, though, they did the Hulk comic right now. The Immortal Hulk is kind of a horror comic, and I love it because Hulk's so intimidating. Because he's a smart Hulk. So like in one comic, Hawkeye killed the Hulk because we asked for it. But they recently, in the last Wednesday, the issue came out. It's complicated. Special arrows. Well, Hulk is back, and they're teaming up with Hawkeye, and he's like, "I'm mad at you, Hawkeye." He puts his hand on his face, so he can clearly smash it because his hand's so big, and he's like, "I'm gonna let you live, but you shouldn't be, left alone with me." Hawkeye's just like, "Ooh, okay, this is intense."
Wow.
I love it, but it'll be awesome. But anyway, a few closing. Before you end off, I just want to talk about two more romances.
Okay.
Gambit and Rogue from the X-Men. I love it. It's classic because they can't touch each other, but they're always like they got like the most chemistry of any comic book character. I love it.
Oh, that sucks.
And also the character of Namor, the Submariner, with everyone. He is the epitome of Mr. Steal Your Girl. Because his big old story when he came out first off was he was trying to steal the Invisible Woman from Mr. Fantastic because it's complicated. I don't like Mr. Fantastic. Or he's trying to take Emma Frost away from Cyclops.
Didn't they character assassinate Mr. Fantastic?
He does it. They do it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I throw that term around a lot. But the best romance is Namor and Doctor Doom, who obviously has, an eye for him. There's one comic panel where Doctor Doom has painted Namor on a piece, and the art on the picture looks better than the art in the comic book. And he's like, "I've spent weeks trying to perfect your perfect jawline, and I just can't seem to grasp it." Any mere mortal man would tremble at the thought of painting you Namor as Submariner, and it's just like, you're into him, aren't you? I'm sorry, I just loved it. I loved it.
I like that they changed the art style just for the painting.
It's. I'll show you the picture after the show.
I love it when stuff like that happens in comics or in cartoons too.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Chowder. I know this is a little bit off topic, but Chowder did that all the time, and it was amazing. They would change the art style.
Yeah.
That is
or
cool.
Gumball.
Oh yes!
Gumball.
Oh my gosh!
Every panel is a different art style.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. A few more. Black Canary, Green Arrow. They're old. They're classic. People love them. It's a good run. And yeah. that's all the ones I really want to talk about.
All right.
Recommend media?
Yeah.
So, a few recommend readings. Do you want to do it?
Sure, although I can't find them. Oh, there they are.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to do, wait, is it called Rogue and Gamut or Mr. and Mrs. X?
Yeah, there's 2 runs by her. So it's Rogue and Gamut was the first one, came out last year, and then Mr. and Mrs. X is one Crane going on. It's just Rogue and Gamut. It's a great series that delves into their relationship.
By Kelly Thompson.
Yeah.
Batman's Hush, 2002, Jeff Loeb.
It dealt with Batman and Catwoman. It's a great run.
Saga of the Swamp Thing by Alan Moore. Is this one you mentioned?
Yes, it's where the Swamp Thing Abigail Arcane kind of started happening.
And Green Arrow Rebirth. This is from 2017.
Yeah.
By Benjamin Percy.
Yeah.
And what?
So comics have a lot of wedding issues where it's like characters getting married. Check those out.
The Deadpool one that you
Did you read it?
Had me read was really, really cute but weird.
It was weird. Yeah. It sets the whole tone right there.
But
yeah.
there were so many like really cool like giant like art panels that had like so much detail in them.
Yeah.
Which was a weird.
Special comic issues have the best art panels.
Yeah, but it was weird, like put against the kind of cutesy style of Deadpool, you know.
Yeah. Ooh, one comic I want to talk about here one day is Muhammad Ali versus Superman. We're going to talk about one day.
Oh my gosh.
Have you heard about this?
I've not.
It's always advertised in my dad's comics I used to read when I was a kid, but it was a big event, and it's this Muhammad Ali getting a fist fight Superman. And the front cover of it has so many little cameos. Has the Beatles on there, has Batman, has like Ronald Reagan on there. It's got so many like little characters just drawn on there by hand. And, yeah, it's not important though.
I want to read it, but the next episode is going to be about Daredevil.
The Man Without Fear. We have a special guest on next week.
That's right.
We got another one.
I'm going to talk about Daredevil.
So be sure to tune in that week, guys. We love you.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. Treat your special person well this Valentine's Day. Whether it's you or whether it's your girlfriend or boyfriend or significant other. Get them some chocolate. Especially yourself. Get yourself some chocolate.
Buy yourself some chocolate.
Treat yourself.
Yes.